We're now joined by Dr. Peter Ubertaccio, who's Vice President for Academic Affairs at Caldwell University, one of our higher ed partners. Good to see you, Doctor.
Thanks for having me.
You have experience not just at Caldwell, but at other institutions of higher learning. You're in Massachusetts, right?
I was in Massachusetts for 20 years before I joined Caldwell.
Let me ask you a question. While we're doing this program at the end of 2021 into 2022, it'll be seen then, the future of higher education overall affected, impacted forever by COVID. But are Catholic universities affected differently? And if so, in what way?
You know, we are affected a little bit differently because we choose to approach education from a holistic perspective. So Catholic institutions very much care about the spiritual as well as the intellectual growth of our students, their physical and mental well-being. Now, many institutions do that. So we're certainly not alone in that, but it's really part of our mission. It's core to our identity, and it's expensive, right? So a holistic approach is a high touch approach, and when you're in a moment that is furthered by the pandemic, not necessarily caused by the pandemic, where costs are a significant factor, it does, I think, hurt Catholic institutions a little bit more than it might otherwise. But it also, I would say, makes us a bit more popular because people are looking for a values-based education in a world that is very uncertain.
And let me also share that I'll be teaching a course in the spring semester at Caldwell University for the 7th straight year. It's in a doctoral program for educational administrators on crisis leadership, if you will. And I really enjoy my time on campus, but that's the point. I will be on campus. Last year, I was not. What is the biggest difference you have found, because you've taught, you've academic higher ed administrator as well, in person versus the remote experience?
Well, I would say that I'm a big champion of both. When both are done well, they are transformative. But what we went through for the past year, going into 2 years now, is not necessarily quality online instruction, but a forced remote instruction due to the pandemic. And so that's very different. So when you're back on campus, and we look forward to welcoming you back, you're going to have a wonderful in-person experience with students. That can be replicated in an online asynchronous or synchronous environment. It just needs to be planned for. And at the outset of the pandemic, we didn't have any time to plan for that.
I'm not going to get on my soapbox here, but I'm a big fan when I have taught or facilitated a leadership or communication seminar of what I like to call forced engagement. You call people out by name, you invite them in, you get them to participate, engage them. I don't buy that it's impossible to engage people when you are remote, but that's for another subject. Can we talk politics? Someone say, why would Steve bring this up? Well, you're a political scientist by background. You study the parties, you study our representative democracy. Question, given how fragmented we are into 2022 as a nation, how polarized we are, what do you think that means for our ability to come together when it matters most on the issues that matter most in our lives?
I think we're losing that ability. It's a great frustration of mine. It's a great concern of mine. The ties that bind us together have frayed. And in some instances and in some places, I think they're increasingly beyond repair. So those of us who are interested in democratic life and our civic health know that we need to be
democratic with a small d.
Democratic with a small d, the norms of a small d democratic society. And one of those norms is you have to be willing to live with people with whom you disagree. And when we see increasing use of, say, political violence to achieve our certain ends, that's an indicator that we're no longer willing to live together with one another. And it's a scary moment.
Peter, you got a silver lining for us? You don't have to make one up, but sure. I have to ask, because I don't want people to say, Adubato's got these people on, and I, by the way, have the same concerns you do. And it's so negative. We're trying to understand how it got this bad and what we need to do. Is there a silver lining / opportunity in this?
Oh my goodness, yes. Our country has been in very difficult places before. So while I'm very concerned about the moment we're living in, it's not quite the same as the early 1860s. And so, I think we need to understand our own history. And I would say what gives me hope are the young people I work with here at Caldwell University. And I see the aspirations they have for themselves. I see students who are struggling with their education while taking care of their family and working 2 jobs. And still they are optimistic about their ability to do all of those things. And I see the pathways that they want to take in helping professions. And so I think that we have a lot to worry about as a society, but I think when we look to each other, we make that choice to look to one another and to look to what our young people want to do, there's a lot of reason to be hopeful about the future.
Hey, Peter, I want to thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Peter. Appreciate it. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been a production of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by BEW Local 102, Bank of America, Englewood Health, Delta Dental of New Jersey, the Fidelco Group, the Russell Berrie Foundation, PSC&G, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, and by Johnson & Johnson. Promotional support provided by Jaffe Communications and by NJ Biz.
It only gets better.